Hey, welcome and thanks everyone for attending this session, which is about the next generation AI developer experience. I'm David. I'm the CEO of Gravitee, and I'm also one of the founders of the company. Prior to becoming the CEO, we were used to do, as a founder, a lot of different things. We were used to do a lot of different roles. Obviously, something which is quite obvious, but at the very beginning, we were used to do some development stuff. We were like, developers. We were building the product. We were building the foundation of the product, of the platform as you know it like today. Maybe something less obvious, but as a founder, we had also to sell the product to the companies and to the customers. And something which came quite frequently during the discussions we had with the guys in front of us was all about the developer portal, the API portal. So during the discussions we had with these guys in front of us was a lot about their expectations around what they're looking for the API portal or the developer portal. And it was pretty much always the same thing. It was pretty much always the same sort of expectation. Guys, I want a platform which will help the consumers to easily or to quickly find out or to discover the APIs, and I need a way for them to gain an access to these APIs. Or it could have been, guys, I need a way for these consumers to test, to try out all the different APIs or the different endpoints we are providing as part of this portal. And so at the end, it was more or less three main expectations, I would say. The first one was about, I want to provide an easy way for enabling the API discovery from an API consumer perspective. So that was like, I need to rely on some sort of search engine so they can put some keywords and so they can find the right API, the relevant API. The second point was, and is still mainly about, as a consumer, you need to understand how to call the APIs. What's the right path? What's the right structure so I can make an API call to any sort of endpoints as provided by the API. And the third point was all about what is the TTFAC, so the time to first API call, making sure that when the consumers has found the right APIs, the right endpoints, we are bringing him the right tools for quickly being able, to test it. And so for this purpose, what we were used to see at that time was all about what is called the API console. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are remembering about the Swagger console or the Ramel console, where as an API consumers, I need to fill some sort of fields, and then I just have to push the try it out button so I can see exactly what will happen if I were to call a given endpoint. That's great. That's a nice experience. That's a very simple experience. But then, what if you have, let's say, plenty of different APIs? What if you have like hundreds of APIs, hundreds of endpoints? That's where, from my perspective, the search engine are maybe less relevant, just because, the way it works, that's pretty rudimentary. Those search engines are based on keywords. So that's a very simple search engine where I'm just providing keywords and the system is giving me the relevant APIs. That's okay, but what if, as a consumer, you would like to just consume multiple APIs and not just only one? What if, as a consumer, you want to invoke plenty or multiple endpoints from different APIs? And so, from my perspective, that's where we are hitting, I would say, the limit of the current API portal technologies as we are providing it. And so that brings me to the next point, what I would expect. And maybe I would like to take some time just to think about, or just to remember about the good old time when I was a kind of developer. And I'm just asking myself, and I'm just taking some time and few seconds to think about what would have been ideal from a developer perspective, what would have been ideal as an approach for enabling me to very quickly find the right APIs, the right endpoints, and what will enable me to create a product, an API product, which is perfectly fits what I'm looking for. And so that's where we are talking about over a new expectations, I would say. It's been a lot of time where when I was accessing, an API portal, I needed to rely on the search engine, providing keywords. I had to do it multiple times for finding the right APIs. Then when I found the first APIs, I needed to find another one. Okay, but I'm just losing time. As a developer, I'm kind of a lazy guy. I don't want to spend time. I don't want to lose my time. I just want to focus on what will be the relevant thing, the relevant API, the relevant endpoints according to what I need, what I want to see, what I want to get access to. So that brings me to the point where me, as a consumer, as a developer, I don't want to do some search thing. I just want to describe what I'm looking for. And I don't want to describe it like I'm just putting some words on a text field. I want to describe my needs, my expectations as a consumer by using some sort of natural language. I want to access a flight booking API. I want to access an hotel booking API. I want the relevant endpoint so I can create very quickly an hotel booking. Okay, that's all I need. And then it comes to the next point. What I would like is not just to create an API for a single endpoint or for a single API. I want to be able to create that sort of mashup API. I want to be able to create that sort of API product which I'll be able to generate by myself, which means that we are bringing some sort of self-service API product generation to the consumer. And that's a big change in terms of paradigm, because I'm sure you're all used to say, okay, I'm the API owner, I'm managing my own API, so that's for me to define what's an API product for my own API and for my own data. In that case, we are not changing that way of working. That's still up to the API owners to define their APIs. But we want to provide an additional layer on top of these API product as they were defined by the API owner. And so we are bringing the capabilities to the API consumers to say, I need this API plus this API for those particular endpoints, and we'll just generate an API which is perfectly fitting your needs. That's one point. The second one will be more about the velocities. I'm sure you heard a lot about the Gravitee as the even native API management platform. And that's a great thing. We have plenty of different specifications such as OpenAPI, Async API, GraphQL, JSON scheme. And we can rely on all those things for creating some sort of knowledge base. So when the consumer is asking for something, we can rely on that particular knowledge base for giving him what he's looking for. So we don't care about the velocity. We don't care if you're talking about a synchronous or an asynchronous APIs. We are just bringing to the developers what he's looking for, and we are trying to just hide from him the rest about the technologies. Is it about messaging? Is it about a classical HTTP backend, classical API backend, etc., etc. That's all what we are bringing as part of the Gravitee API management, even native support. And then, if you attended the session by Linus yesterday, which was about federated API and event management, there is one main thing to keep and to remember about. That's all about any velocity, any runtime, which means that we don't care about what's the sort of backend, if it's a standard API backend, a messaging broker, a database maybe, a Salesforce, I don't know, whatever. And then we don't care about the runtime. So if your APIs were to be deployed on a standard Gravitee API management or within an AWS API gateway or as part of a Solace broker or a Confluent broker, we are just getting all of those information from the different system. We are creating some sort of consistent and federated knowledge base, and we are hiding all this from a consumer perspective. As a consumer, I just want to focus on what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a flight booking. I don't care about from where the data is coming from, okay? That's the main point about the AI developer experience kind of things. And all this, and the main objectives of all this is all about allowing the business acceleration by letting the consumers and your partners to create their own API. Any velocity, any runtime, self-service API product generation. That's all. So let's jump on the classical, I would say, journey as a consumers. What I would like to say is, okay, I'm somewhere on the portal and I want to access flight booking and hotel booking. That's two different backends, okay? I want to create an hotel booking. I want to create a flight booking. That's great. Two APIs, two different endpoints. As a consumer, I don't care. I just want something which will allow me very quickly to consume these different APIs using that self-service API product generation thing. And starting from there, as we know about all the specification, OpenAPI, Async API from the other APIs, we can generate a specification, whatever the velocity, OpenAPI, Async API, which will be specific, which will perfectly fit the needs of the API consumer. So we have something which is perfectly fitting with what I'm looking for as an API consumer. And then we were used to use the API console in the past. Why, if you're not trying just to accelerate even more by providing some sort of code, by generating some code for the developers. So I don't have to click somewhere within the API console to fill some fields to provide, I don't know, a first name, username, age, whatever. We don't care. As a developer, I just want to accelerate so I can quickly generate the code and I can consume my own API. So that will be the first step. That will be all about generating code from the specification we've seen from the step 2. And finally, that's great to generate code, but as a developer, as a consumer, we are used to use what we're calling IDE. So what if I were able, instead of going to an API portal, what if I were able to go to my favorite IDE to use some sort of plugins, to use some sort of panel where I could ask, okay, I want to create hotel booking and I want to create a flight booking. We are generating the specification under the hood, and then we are generating the code directly into the IDE. That's where we are seeing the place for the AI and the ML stuff. That's where we know that we can accelerate and give the tools and give all the capabilities which will be needed from a developer, from a consumer perspective. But all this was quite theoretical, I would say. And now I will let Remy, one of our senior software engineer, but also our AI ML expert, to explain what's really happening under the hood and to give you some sort of demo of what we have built today around this concept of AI developer experience thing at Gravitee. So Remy, the place is yours. Thank you all.
Hello, welcome to this demo. My name is Remy Sultan, and I will show you how we can merge APIs effortlessly today. As you can see here on the screen, we are on the Gravitee AI portal, and we are asked to search the library of APIs. Let's do this. Let's say I want to implement a feature that geolocates me on a map. I will need a reverse geolocation API. So let's input this, a reverse geolocation API. We'll end up with a bunch of results associated with a match score. This match score is computed via vector embeddings. We take your sentence, we convert it into a vector, and compare it with other vectors of APIs. And in the end, we get a matching score and we display the results. We can also look inside the APIs and check the response. And this will give an idea on how the API will respond. Let's take another use case. Let's say that I want to have an API that gives airport information and also on-time performance. I have already a curated search for that. So it is provide an API to retrieve airport on-time performance and also airport information via a specific service called Aviation Data System. So let's input our search. And as you can see, we get what we want. We get several searches. And we can also look at the responses. This seems okay, like it seems that we get very good matches, so we can go at the bottom of the page and decide to combine APIs or build a new one. This time we'll choose to combine the APIs. What it does is that it takes the two best matches, as we see, based on the input that we put already. And we can still check also the responses. And if we're happy with that, we can combine the APIs. We can choose the language. So let's say that we want to choose JavaScript right now. And here it is. What it does is that the service generates code based on the two API content. So the path, the response, the requests, and gives you this code. So as you can see here, it's using Axios for JavaScript. We still find the two API path with the parameters if we need an API key, and the service combines the two APIs. We can also do this with Python. Let's choose Python. And we get our code in Python as well. And we even get classes. So the way we do this is that we leverage the power of LLMs and generative AI. So we take the APIs, generate the prompt, and then get the response. And that's pretty much it for the demo. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will leave you with the next talk. Thank you.